Hi, welcome into my studio, and for this pastel demonstration I'm going to be drawing this super cute Rottweiler puppy. And the main reason I'm doing this is because lots of you have asked for a pet because you're trying to get into pet portraiture or that type of thing. And then again, lots have also asked me to tackle a black subject or a subject that's got lots of black on there, because I know many of you are struggling with black subjects because you don't know what colours to actually put on there, and you're saying the colours are looking dead and not exciting at all. So I thought this subject would really combine those 2 points for you. Now on the start of this video I'm going to be doing the blocking in using my pan pastels, and I've got a few colours out here already, and I'll be using some of these tools as well, these soft pan pastel tools to apply the pastel powders themselves. And the reason I use these pans, as I show in lots of my pastel videos, is they just make this blocking in stage so very easy and uncomplicated. But if you don't have pans or you don't want to buy them, don't worry, I've showed in lots and lots of my other videos different ways of doing it. You can just use pencils completely for the underlayer as well, although obviously the pencils will wear out much quicker. You can use soft pastels or hard pastel sticks in particular, are very good for under drawings too. So don't think I'm pushing anybody in any way to buy a certain type of supplies, because in my videos I show lots of different varieties of ways to get a very similar effect. Okay, so here's the stage I'm starting off on. I've got a grey pastel matte paper. The paper is critical that we use a sanded type of paper, because that's going to grab the pastel and allow these details that I'm going to build up on it. Don't go using one of those smooth papers. If you want a much more detailed review of papers, check out my YouTube channel, and I go into the reasons why I use papers such as pastel matte to really get that detail effect. The drawing is transferred over onto there. You can use a graphite transfer paper, or you can actually draw straight on there with graphite, although you don't want to be erasing. So what I generally suggest you do if you want to draw is actually draw it on some scrap paper, then make any mistakes you're going to make on there, and then you can use the graphite transfer paper to bring everything over. That way you're not going to be doing any erasing. Now all I'm doing to start with, I've got a Carbothello black pencil. That's the brand I use more often than not, is Carbothello. I've got some lovely greys and neutral colours, especially picked for wildlife, or especially suited for wildlife and animals that I find. So that's a great range to start with, great price too. But you know, you can use whatever pencils you want. Pit pastel is another good type. Basically all I'm doing is establishing where the black areas are and where these more brown areas are going to be. That's going to stop me making any mistakes when I'm doing the pans, because with the pans and the tools it happens quite quick, the blocking in stage, and it can be easy for beginners especially to put things in the wrong area. So just by doing this I'm gonna make sure I don't make any mistakes. So now I've done that basic stage, just move on to the pans. So the pans are compressed pastel in these plastic containers. I've got just a sheet of normal white printer paper there. If I want to mix anything, so we can mix colours together a little bit with the pans, I can do it on there. It also helps me to you know, work out how much I'm actually putting on these tools. So I don't want to put too heavy a layer here. The real reason I'm doing this is to show myself easily where all these darks are going to be, where the browns are going to be, and building kind of a solid layer that I can then add more pastel on top of, and then finally build the detail with the pencils on top of that again. But obviously you can, if you so wish, want to do a whole painting in pan pastels, you won't be able to get the same amount of detail, especially when you're working quite small, such as this puppy portrait. But you can certainly do a fantastic drawing or painting, whatever you want to call it, using just the pans themselves. Now you can see as I'm applying it, I'm going quite light. I'm not forcing or pushing too hard into the pastel matte paper surface because it has got a slight texture to it. These soft tools are quite soft, and the harder you push into the pastel matte surface, the quicker you're going to start wearing out the surface of those tools. You can see as well as I'm applying it, I'm going in that fur growth direction. So the way the fur and the hairs are lying, that's the direction I'm going in. I'm not too worried at all about all little colour changes. All of those are going to be adjusted and detailed on top of this layer. And if you've seen any of my oil painting videos, you'll know that I do virtually the same thing but using oils. So I still do this underpainting technique. So there's nothing complicated about this, as you can see. So I'm just going to speed this video up so you can watch as I'm blocking this in a bit faster, because the whole drawing took me around about, I think, 3.5 hours to complete, and I want to spend a lot more time in real time showing you all how I start to build up the layers and put the details on top. So that's most of the blacks and those lighter grey tones in. So now I'm just switching over to a brown. I'm just blocking that in exactly the same fashion. Now when you're doing this, if there's ever an area that you want to be pure white or, you know, a very light colour, make sure you haven't got anything very, very dark under there. Now with pastels we can do light over dark and dark over light. But you've got to remember there's only so much you can alter a colour to make it lighter. And let me explain that a bit more. If we've got, at an extreme example, black underneath an area we want to be pure white, whenever we're trying to put that pure white on, we're going to be lifting some of that black or mixing in some of that black that's already down there. So you're never going to get a pure white back on top of it. So if you want a pure white, make sure you leave that area unpainted or no pastel on there, or put the pure white down straight away on there. That's going to allow you to keep that pigment pure. But if you've got an area, say the top of the head, where it needs to be kind of a lighter grey, you could in theory put, you know, your dark black on there, and you can alter or lighten an area quite dramatically and drastically in pastel by overlaying. The easiest or the best way to find that out, what you can actually get away with, is you just use a bit of scrap and try these things out. That's what I've had to do, and then you become much more familiar with how dark you can go as an underlayer and the type or the amount of lighter tones you can layer on top. You can see I'm mixing the colours there because I want this to be a bit lighter, so I'm putting some of this reddy brown in, some of the more muted brown, and that's a very light creamy colour at the top. So we can mix those colours a bit. That's not a problem, it's easy to do on the paper, as you can see. That means we don't have to buy all the colours if we don't want to. We can actually mix and blend them together. Okay, so I've zoomed right in. Remember what I said about if you want an area really white, get it in early. That's what I'm doing for the eyes. So that's pure white. Not pushing too hard and not depositing lots and lots of pastel down on there. It's just showing me where that white's going to be. I want this bottom area to be a very dark brown. That pencil I'm using there, Caran d'Ache, they've got a good range of very dark colours. So that's the colours I use more often than not. My set is comprised probably of 90% Pitt Pastel and Carbothello, and then the other 10% then are other brands that I just picked up because I like the colours or tones in there. Over the top area we've got a real black section, and down the corner of this eye as well is very black. It's not a difficult eye to do. It's mainly just very dark colours, and the highlight is going to give it that glassy appearance. But because the dog is making eye contact with us, that's making it an extra special centre of interest. You can see how at the top of the eye I want that to be very light as well, so I've left that area undrawn. So I know I can get that pure white pigment on there, no problem at all. If I want to tone that white down, then it's much easier to put that dark or darker colour over the top of it, whereas it would be very difficult if I'd gone all black on the eye to try and get such a pure white highlight such as that. Just adjusting the shape just a small amount, so you can see I cut over the top of that black, and that's pretty much the eye done. As simple as that. And I've got lots of much more detailed videos on eyes if that's something you want to look at more or specialize on. But in this instance it is a very easy eye to actually draw. So now just a small amount of adjustment. Needs a bit of grey just to tone that white down. I'm not going to do much more of that. I will revisit it just to refine it some more, especially a bit later in the painting or the drawing, because sometimes I'll be resting on the surface of this, even though I'll be resting on some glassine like I am now. Sometimes it can actually get a little bit blurry, a little bit mucky, if you're resting on there a lot. So I'll just refine that, revisit it right at the very end. And the other eye, very simple again. Exactly the same technique. This dark area goes up here to the side. Lots of black in there as well. Just a touch of the finger, that's just blended that area. Just slightly. A little bit darker down this bottom section. It's mainly black. Black up around the top as well. And that pretty much does it for that eye. That is really subdued, that distant eye. Okay, so zoomed back out. Now I'm going to really start to refine this underlayer. And I'm going to make areas go much darker now, and I'm going to use my darkest pastel, which is my new pastel, black pastel stick. You see me use my fingers to blend a lot. All I'm really doing now is blending the edges of the pans, pushing that pastel down into the surface. That's going to mean there's not going to be much pastel just lying around and floating around on the surface, and it's also going to mean that I'm going to be able to get a lot more layers because I'm pushing this pastel down into the layers. It looks like I'm doing nothing. The good thing about pastel matte paper, you see this Prismacolor new pastel here, I'll show you. Just black. I've sharpened it to an edge using some glass paper. As I was saying, the pastel matte paper really grabs a pastel, so there's not a lot of dust, and it doesn't go blending out when you rub it with your finger, so it doesn't just smudge all the way across. Okay, so using the new pastel, you can see I'm once again going in the fur direction. Smaller marks now, as if I'm drawing fur. You can see it's going much darker. It's a very, very dark pastel. It's also extremely opaque as well, so you can see it's really covering up that base layer. And it's going to give this drawing in particular, because there's so many very dark areas in between the eyes, especially under the neck, it's going to make that look nice and punchy. Now in these areas where it's going to be much lighter, where the highlight is really coming down on top of the dog's head, I'm not covering up all of the areas with black, so you can still see a lot of that pan pastel underdrawing showing through. Now I'll blend this later on, and I'll come over the top of it with my details. So that's quite a lot of that pastel down on there. Just doing a small amount to the nose. And there's not too much detail going to be on the nose either. I've just recently done a very in-depth demonstration specifically on a dog's nose, just for those of you that want to do pet portraiture. And lots of you actually, want a lot of detail in the eyes and the nose, and lots struggle with that. So if you go over to my YouTube channel, just type my name there and it'll come up, and you will see a demo, very long demo, just specifically on noses. So now I've got that in place, I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to start to just blend some of this out. You can use your little finger, your index finger, it doesn't make any difference. But it's still the best tool I've found for this type of thing. You can see how the pastel mat paper is holding that pastel, so even though I'm pushing fairly hard, it's not just smudging into a big smudgy mess at all. It's still keeping a lot of the details in there. You can see where I've left the marks for the highlights to come later, that's blending out a bit, and that's what I want, so that I can put those pencils on top and those lighter marks will show up. So when I'm blending, going in that third direction again, everything I do will be going in the third direction. And if you squint your eyes at this section I'm working on, you can see that I want it all to be just a little bit darker than on the reference photo. And on the reference as well, there's lots of very extreme highlights. I'm going to make mine a bit more subtle. Don't forget, we don't have to follow a photo religiously. I'm going to keep this one very similar to the reference photo, but I find those highlights on top of the head just look a bit too vibrant, a little bit artificial. I want to just tone it down a bit and make it look more subtle and make him look even more cute and cuddly. Now the colours I've dragged out around the dog is just for, well, for a start it helps me show me what colours are actually in there, so I can pick the pencils and the pastels that I want. I've done a demonstration on this once again on my YouTube channel on how to pull those colours out with an image editor, whether it's Photoshop or free image editor, because it really helps beginners and novices as well. I like to use every trick that I can think of, everything that makes it easier for me and for others to not make mistakes and to get more accurate colours. So I've just picked up a darker pastel pencil this time. So I'm going to be starting to refine a little bit more. I want the edges to be soft as well. And sometimes the colours you want, you can only find in pencils or these pastel sticks. So you can see I match up the colours, try a little bit. I know that's pretty close. And I'll refine these later on as well. But I want to get some nice darkish colours down on there. And as I pick the colours, you can see I can do little dots here and there, just testing it on scrap bits of paper or scrap area, an area I know I'm going to cut off or cover up completely. Because sometimes the colours on sticks or pencils don't really match up to what you're seeing when you lay it down on a piece of paper. So you can see I've got a few different colours out here just for this chin, because very dark browns or orangey browns that are dark are not that easy to come by. They're one of those colours with pastels you don't see a lot of. So I'm just going to carry on now building up some of these colours quite slowly before I start looking at the details. Now the beauty with these hard pastel sticks, and these are Conti sticks, they also call them Conti crayons, but they are pastels, not oil based, is that you can sharpen the edge, or you can use the edge because they come as hard squares like this, and you can actually draw fur with them just like you would a pencil. And they're nice rich colours, really reasonably priced as well. And once again, they stop your more valuable pastel pencils from wearing out or being used too quickly. But you could use pencils for this stage, no problem at all. In fact, I've got a video on a tiger for beginners or novices, and all I use on there are pencils, just to show you that you can create very similar effects using lots of different types of pastels. You can see I'm using these, as I said, very similar to a pencil, putting in those strokes in that fur direction. And I'm just going to continue now to do this exact same thing, using a couple of different colours, just to begin to build up just the beginnings of this fur texture. The important thing is going in that fur direction. Now continuation, I'll start on the upper part of the head. You can see it's all starting to come together now. It's all looking more of a blurred out fuzzy version of the reference photo, which I've deliberately put on the side for you to see how I'm going to get that realism, but also make slight adjustments to make it more of a drawing stroke painting than a photograph. It's really great sometimes you see on social media as well when people have done something super hyper photorealistic, and I've done that myself. If you see my elephant baby video, where I've really gone to try and get as much photographic realism as possible, but sometimes you want the people to know it's a piece of art, it's a drawing, it's a pastel, it's a painting, rather than a photograph, and you may want to hold off sometimes on the extreme details. So at the back of the head it blurs off somewhat, and you see pretty much the whole edge going around the dog is quite blurry, and I may even accentuate that even more, because by blurring that and sharpening up the nose, the eyes and those features, it's going to give it more of a three-dimensional look. It's going to make the viewer really look into the face. So you can see I'm applying some more of that new pastel because I want these dark black areas to be super black, really rich, before I start layering the details on top. Now, as you can see, I've started to work with the pencils. The same thing I'm going to say again, go in the fur direction. I'm applying the pastel as I'm pulling the pencil towards me. I'm not pushing up with it. I'm generally starting with the area that's further away and then layering as I come closer to myself or closer down to the eyes. You can see I'm layering on top as I'm pulling the pencil towards me. Now, people struggle with black subjects sometimes because there's generally not a lot of pure black on there, and this is the case with this one too. If you take away the area that's under the chin and look at just the head, there's not much pure black there at all. There's lots of greys on the top in this case, and that's because the photographer, this is more of a studio photo, so the background is white and he's probably using very strong lights as well on there, So that's giving lots of greys. Now if the dog was outside under a sunlit blue sky, perhaps with on grass, then on the top of the head you're going to get much more blue, as that sky is coming down and the light is bouncing off those highlights. So that would have had more of a blue-grey or blue-black tinge to it. Underneath the chin, that would have all been influenced with a high strong light and colour bouncing off the grass coming up, so there would have been green tinges in there. So whenever you're drawing and painting black, always look for these other colours that are always going to be influencing it. So this is an easy way to show you, because there's not many unusual colours or many strong colours going around. It's greys because of that black, or sorry, that white background. So always remember to look for those colours. That's what's going to make it much easier when you're drawing and painting black. The same is true with white subjects in particular. They're going to be influenced a heck of a lot as well by the surroundings and the colour of the light. So this is a fairly long process, but saying that, I did the whole drawing, as I said, in about 3.5 hours, so that's pretty fast for something that's going to turn out this detailed. And I love the way that with pastels we can so easily put light on top of dark and dark on top of light. So I'm just going to continue now. I'll let the video run a lot in real time as well. There's no point me doing much voiceover, it's just a case of you once again seeing what I'm actually doing, rather than me talking about the same thing all the time. If I want to bring an area back more black, I can always bring that new pastel back in. I find that goes much darker than any pastel pencil I've had from any other brand. Now I'm on these browner areas, so I'm going to do exactly the same again, but obviously I'm using the brown colours now. This pencil I'm using is Pit Pastel, so when you see me with these wooden shaft pencils, that's the Pit Pastels. The coloured shaft, that's the Carbothellos. So you can see that I do mix and match the brands, and you haven't got to be specifically sticking with any brand. They all got slightly different colours, so they're all of use. Lots of beginners ask me about sharpening the pencils. I use a crank handle sharpener, a swordfish one, and once again on my YouTube channel you find lots and lots of details and reviews on different sharpeners on there, because I know that's a problem for lots of pastel artists. So I've done many hours research on it. I bought lots of different sharpeners, and those are the best ones that I've found that I actually show on YouTube. So you can see I'm going lighter and lighter, and that's the general way we work with pastels. Go from dark and we start overlaying the lights. And you can see my pencil's getting sharper all the time. Now that blocking in stage is done. Now I'm building on that underdrawing. Just touching up a few areas around the eye as well. These areas need to be a bit lighter, and when I want it lighter I push a bit harder on the pastel pencil. Gives me more of a distinct mark, deposits more pastel down on the paper, gives me a sharper edge. As I'm touching up this bit of white on the eye, hope you've enjoyed part 1 of the video, hope you found it useful so far, and I'll see you all again for part 2.